Bae SangPil spent 10 years as an actor, and his wife Marian Scovart is a theater director. Together, they are two of the very few vintage lighting collectors in Korea. Share their fascination and passion for vintage lamps. Hello and welcome. I'm An Jang-hyun for Heart to Heart. Lamps that were used in factories 100 years ago have become popular collectibles over the past decade. Today we're joined by a couple who collect, redesign, and sell these lamps. Let's meet Bae SangPil and his wife Marian Scovart. Great to have you with us.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Hello.
meet you.
Now our studio right now, the set is full of vintage lamps, I should call them, right?
I should, yes. Well, you should.
So what exactly is vintage lamp?
Well, it's a lamp that's more than 30 years. As if a collector car becomes a vintage collection car after 30 years. And in between, there's if it's more than 100 years, then it can be called antique.
Oh, okay. So between 30 and 100 years old.
Yes.
I see. Can you tell us about some of these lamps?
Of course, such as...
For example, this one here.
well, this is a vintage grease gun, actually.
What, grease gun?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason why I chose it to remodel it is because it's not really, this is eventually what I do. I would take an objet d'art to make it into a lamp, and
So it wasn't a lamp to begin with?
No, it
was
was
a grease
not.
gun and
No.
you just made it into a lamp?
yes, and the way it was made, it sort of made me think of the Pulp Fiction 1950s, you know, the science fiction alien guns.
Yeah.
So I just redesigned it and electrified it.
The
and made
bulb
it
is
into
really cool. How did you do that?
The bulb is actually a licensed product. It's 1910 model of GE.
Which you made?
Yes.
Which you recreated?
Yes. Yes. And it's either this I guess they call it squirrel cage, and the other one is 1920. It's a 4 loops that
okay.
that they made in 1920s, and it gives this orange glow, and it just makes everybody look so beautiful.
Right. I actually like this one here.
Oh, you do? Okay, well, this one is a Gildet in 1951. It's the pride of industrial lamps of France, and it was made by Jean-Louis Domecq, therefore hence Gildet. And it's still, they still make this actually, by hand. And what's special about this lamp is it can go in many different ways and shapes, and you can add on how many arms you like to add on.
So the bends all move.
Yes, and because at the joints there is really no, there's no wires that goes through. It's just contact rings. So you could actually just take it off and just put it on, just with a wire.
Okay. So there are many people around the world who collect these vintage lamps?
Oh yes, particularly in New York, because that's where I lived. I guess about 20 years they've been in fashion. You know, in the most expensive restaurants and bars will have these lamps, and you know they'll be hip. So, in France as well, I mean, you know, they have these lamps, and you know, specifically industrial lamps. They're, you know, decorating the walls of the most famous architects and, you know, restaurants, bars. It's just really beautiful to see.
They must be quite expensive.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah?
To get them, especially because they're a collector's item, and they no longer make it. Especially, I mean, you know, the Gildet lamps, you know, they still made, but the vintage ones, the true vintage ones, they're hard to get.
The ones that were really made in the
Yes,
1940s.
exactly.
What's the most expensive amount you spent on a vintage lamp?
Oh, do I really want to disclose that?
You don't?
Not really, not yet.
Okay. Now, let me ask you, Marian, you two moved from America to Korea 4 years ago.
Yes.
Why?
Well, for many different reasons. You know, I was going to meet SangPil's parents, of course. Also, I had a show at Songnam Art Center, the Hanguk Saramdeul, the Korean people, by
Okay.
Vinaver. And so we also wanted to move out of America, and so we decided to come to Korea.
And are you enjoying your life here in Korea so far?
Yes, but I'm very happy we have lights like this in our house, because it's very difficult actually for me to bear the fluorescent, what is it?
Fluorescent.
The fluorescent
lights,
light are very, for me looks like a hospital kind of lighting. So, yeah.
So you have these vintage lamps all around your house?
That's right. It's a forest of lamps.
You actually opened a website where you show people vintage lamps, and people can actually buy vintage lamps. too,
Yes,
is
I
that
did.
correct?
It's called Chimera.kr, and I chose Chimera for a reason. It's a legendary animal. It's a fictional animal, obviously, with a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail. And because what I like to do was because things like this, it's
Turning a grease gun into a
right.
lamp.
Because I would put 2 or 3 parts together and make a lamp at finality. So I chose Chimera and KR, and it's a fun project.
If there are collectibles in the United States, Europe, and even Japan, then I'm sure the trend is going to catch on sometime in Korea
I'm
as well.
sure it will. I hope it will. And that's the reason why I made a website where everybody can see what kind of style I deal with, and the beauty of it.
On Heart to Heart, we're joined today by vintage lamp collectors Bae SangPil and Marian Skobart. We'll be right back with more. Up next, an exhibition to promote the beauty of vintage lighting. This cafe is where Bae SangPil exhibits his vintage lighting collection. He collected these lamps and had to recreate some of them to make them into vintage lamps.
This, which is very special. This is made in 1903, and it's signed Benjamin in 1903. And this is basically what I call a praying mantis. It looks like samagui, so I call it praying mantis lamp. So this is a Victorian era gas pipe. Used to be a gas pipe in a rather affluent house. And this is a spun copper plate, and I actually made the design myself. And of course, over 100-year-old. You could actually basically make it lower or higher. It's just really well made.
These century-old lamps were used in American and European factories, but they still look elegant and are in good condition.
I've never really counted, about 400 to 450 pieces that I've collected over 6-7 years now. And my wife loves it, and we both have a passion for it. So.
Over 400 lamps collected over 6-7 years. That's quite a lot for a relatively short time.
I would say, but when you get into one thing, I mean, as if with anything, you specialize your field, and you realize that what you've known before, a little of it, is getting grander every day. Oh my God, what is that field? No, okay, well, I'm going to study that, and then that field gets bigger, of course,
right.
So it's just a specialization that really makes people study.
Where did you store all of them?
My house.
Your house. Mary is sighing a big sigh.
They had
Yes, the
taken
house.
over the house and my husband's life. He stares at them for hours at night.
But you love them too.
I do.
He says. But not that many of them. So did you bring all of them from the States when you came?
Not all of it, no. Not all of it. There are some in France. and some in New York. And the stuff that I really love, I'm not going to sell, obviously. But you know, when I go to France, you know, her family has 3 castles that are just old, and I would just go into their warehouse or whatever. I mean, she still has a horse buggy that was 200 years old, and I could just look at it and just drool.
You're into antiques.
Yes,
anyway.
I am. It's just they're made better. You know, anything that was made beautifully was actually made over 100 years ago, and I agree with that.
Now, what does your house look like in Korea? I mean, I'm just trying to imagine a
It's a
house
forest.
filled with this kind of industrial lamps. Does it go together?
It's difficult,
Sure.
especially because we didn't really design our house. It's kind of just a working house. We are very busy people, so I'm trying to put the lamps away, and he's putting back the lamps in the center. I'm putting them away, and he puts them. For me, to see a beautiful object makes me very happy. So I just want one. But if there is 10 objects next to each other, then it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So-
I'm just wondering whether these lamps would look good in a regular Korean house.
It depends on what kind of Korean. If you look at the traditional Korean house, actually, I think the colors of the Korean house and the wood and the paper will look very good with a industrial lamp.
Really?
Actually, yeah. This kind, because it's also the same kind of history. In a very Rococo style, furnitured, modern Korean house, and with this kind of fluorescent lighting, it's difficult.
Right.
But in bars, and restaurants where there is more of a style, you know, there is a lot of now concrete, right? Kind of raw concrete architecture that goes very well with this kind of style.
I see. So you said you were already into antiques before you became interested in vintage lamps.
Yes.
Why lamps in particular? How did it all begin?
Well, my interest in antiques began with my brother, who's a true collector. He just loves these strong imaged arts that were made by these Aborigines. And I always liked, of course, I'm exposed to it all the time, so you know, I opened my eyes to it. And then I realized that I like functional art. Something that, you know, as art as an art's sake doesn't really make sense to me, but if you can use it in your everyday life, then it makes art more appreciable. So that's why I think I was attracted to lamps, because they were really work of art. For instance, you know, nobody really knows that Frank Lloyd Wright designed his own lamps. You know, years ago, I mean, this is you know, turn of the century, the most famous artists, the architects, were actually lamp makers themselves, because they needed specific. They designed a specific house for a specific purpose, and they needed lighting fixtures to go with this concept. So what do? They just designed it. So these lamps were just work of art.
I heard that one time you had to spend an entire night in front of a bank that was about to be demolished because you wanted to get your hands on their chandelier.
Yes. It was in Brooklyn. It's Williamsburg. I forget what the bank's name was, but it was to be demolished for years and years. And you know, I always drove through it, and the beautiful Williamsburg-styled. It's called actually Williamsburg chandelier. Made of all brass, and just patina was just so beautiful. I just drooled at it for years. And then I heard that this was going to come down. So obviously I was the first in line, and I had to wait all night basically for the demolition experts.
team.
Yeah, and I just begged them, please, I will give you, you know, whatever you want. So, you know, of course, they put up a fight and all that stuff, but
you got it.
I eventually got it.
What do you say to your husband about this kind of passion for vintage lamps?
Well, I'm a theater director,
Uh-huh.
so I'm very used to expressing myself, and I'm also very passionate with what I do. So I understand him in his expression of himself through this lamp. It makes him happy. And also, I appreciate the lamps. I really do. You know, I think they are very beautiful, and I think in Korea, I really need this kind of lighting because it's really not romantic, this fluorescent
Yeah, well,
lighting.
you
know,
might
just-
need a few and not 400.
That's
in your
another subject.
house, yeah. And let's not mention all the money he's spending
Yeah.
on buying these items.
But you know, they also support. They're also supporting us. I mean, he sells them. He's
Right.
very good when he's very how do you say that, shy when he says that we don't sell them. He sells them well, so it's okay.
I'm glad she shares the passion at least a
Well,
little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I bring the milk money home.
Yeah, that's true.
Stay tuned. We are going to have more from vintage lighting collectors Bae SangPil and Marion Skobart. Coming up, how SangPil and Marion first met as an actor and director and how they fell in love. We're exploring the world of vintage lamps today with collectors Bae SangPil and his wife Marion Skobart. Now, you started out as an actor, SangPil.
Yes.
And Marion, you as a theater director. And what you met in a play.
Casting.
In a production. Yes,
I
you actually
casted him.
casted him.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
It's
What
the best way
happened?
to find your husband.
Ulterior motives.
Were there ulterior motives, I wonder?
No, they were not.
Yes, they were.
I was just casting for a very, very difficult show because it required a lot of physical activities, and out of many, many people, he was the best. So that's how I casted him.
What play was that?
In the Solitude of Cottonfield by Coltès, a very famous French playwright, and very dark play and based on martial art movements. And SangPil is a martial artist, so that's why.
SangPil is no longer active as an actor, though, right? You're a full-time vintage lamp
Collector,
man.
yes.
Yes. But Marion, you still are in
Yes,
the
yes,
theater.
yes.
You, in fact, since coming to Korea, you directed 2 plays. Is that correct?
That's right.
The
yes.
Korean People and.
The Confession by Kim
Confession.
Kong with Wuturi Company. So that's it's wonderful to be able to work here with Korean actors and
Right.
Korean company. Yeah, I love it.
You did participate in the Korean People, though, right? As a martial arts
That's right.
Yes,
choreographer.
instructor. And I told them there was a condition actually. You know, I don't know if I should say it, but we were actually bringing 20 some odd actors to France. And you know, I said I will give them kung fu lessons on one condition: all of them have to bring 1 lamp back to Korea.
Oh, a collector's
Yes.
item.
Yes,
So they did.
they did. Worked out quite well, actually.
Looking at your career, though, SangPil, it's quite strange because before being a vintage lamp collector, you were an actor for 10 years. Before you were an actor, you're just a regular office white-collar worker.
No, I mean, that office didn't really work out well because I really don't like wearing suit. And I just like working with hands. So, I was, I was lost and I was young, and now I'm
Found and old.
lost, and now I'm still lost and old. But it's all about expression. I have no idea how to express myself, and I'm still finding the mediums to it. So it's I don't know. I think it's the best way to live, and some people say it's the worst way to live. But at least I'm happy, trying to find what I want, and it never ends.
You certainly jumped around quite a bit in
Yes,
your
I have.
career.
Yes, my parents are certainly not happy.
Do you think vintage lighting will be your last stop? Or?
I have no idea, but it keeps my thoughts busy and my wallet's thin right now. But it's fine.
Now, Marion, you're going to continue working as a theater director
Yes, I
here,
will.
right?
Yeah.
If you had to cast your husband again, would you?
It depends on the play.
Yeah?
Of course I would, but it depends on what the play requires. Yeah, of course.
Because your husband obviously thinks you're a very good vintage You said that once
I'm
in
a
an
very good
interview.
vintage, that's right.
Yes.
I'm not antique yet.
She's not antique yet, but she will always be my treasure number one.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, what a horrible things to say on TV.
Oh, you said that, and it's going to be on the record now.
Oh, la, la.
But you do describe vintage lamps as friends that age well with time.
Oh yes, of course. I actually, when I first, this is a sort of a ceremony that I do. When I first acquire an object that's been handled by many people in so many years, I feel their energy, the people who use them. So I actually welcome them. I have a drink with them. I give a little drink.
To the lamps?
Yes, to the lamps, and it's sort of like paying an homage to it's obviously older than me since birth, and I just feel they have this personality, and I always feel I have to entertain it, and therefore work with it, or lets me work with it, and it's like people. With some people, you just don't feel the connection, but after you do it, I don't know if it's just me, I just feel better.
Is there a particular item at the moment that you have your eyes on, that you have yet to have your hands on?
No, not yet. Well, I mean, of course, the more I dive into it, the more I want to have.
Right.
But of course, you have to draw your ambitions once in a while, because I'm so poor I can't even pay attention. It's just of course, there are items that I've looked for many years, like McCroskey lamp sitting right here, and and because it was not made for the mass, and and not many people know about it, and I actually found out that this is only for the know, and it just makes me happy to have it, and I'll probably want another one, but I'll stop myself. Actually, she'll stop me.
For now, it's your prized possession.
Yes.
I see. No, Marion, in order to support his very expensive hobby, you're going to have to continue working as a theater director.
I'm not sure the theater gives a lot of money either, but it makes me also very happy.
Do you have anything in the plan?
We actually, I'm going to probably work with another Korean writer. I'm not sure which one yet. I'm searching now. And we are touring Hanguk Saramdul in France.
And you're taking it to France?
Yes, the second time. It's very popular in France. It was not so popular here, but very popular in France.
That's
so
good.
It was in Le Monde.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And no, I'm just going to support him with his bad habits.
There you go.
At least I'm not drinking every night.
That's true.
Somebody has to be the breadwinner in the family, right? Well, I want to thank you very much for sharing your passion for vintage lighting with us today. And Marion, as much as you gave him a hard time about his expensive hobby, I know that you support him 100% as well. So best of luck with all of your endeavors, the lighting and
Thank you very
the
much.
play.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Come visit us on Arirang TV's Heart to Heart homepage. Tell us what you think about our program or any of our guests, and selected individuals will receive complimentary gifts. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you again next time.